So to those of you unaccustomed to British weather, it's middle of September and it's 30 degrees. Go figure. Hence the sun cream. Got to look after yourself. I've still got sun cream on my face. Right. So I made a start building up the paved seating area here. So yesterday I cut out and laid dry the outside rim of stones and the inside rim of stones, and I'm now laying those. And once I've got those into position, I can start to infill, cutting where required, to, you know, essentially it's a jigsaw puzzle with pieces of stone, just to fill this with as smaller gaps as possible. It's quite a fiddly thing, but it's a lovely result when it's finished. Obviously you want to try to use as fewer small pieces as possible to minimise joints and pointing. But the York stone's a lovely stone to use. It's got obviously that natural riven edge, riven surface, but it's nice and flat, and a great surface to put, you know, benches and tables on. So we'll crack on with this, try and get most of this laid today and possibly tomorrow, and then another day of pointing, and then this bit will be done. So I'm making good progress on laying the natural stone paving, the crazy paving, which is a bit of an 80s thing, but natural stone paving. Finding pieces of stone, cutting them, making them fit, and then laying them as this finished surface. So it's quite fiddly and time consuming, and as you can see my rock supply is dwindling, so I'm probably going to have to pick up a bit more, and as the rock disappears, progress slows down because I've got less stone to choose from. But that's not bad for a day's work, and I've still got the rest of the afternoon to go, so I'd like to sort of complete half of it. Obviously I've still got all the pointing to go, but this is going to make a lovely seating area at which to admire the pond and to look back at the Cascade. And as soon as I started building this, I'd never originally envisaged doing this. The seating area was going to be a lot smaller, and if you remember, there used to be a bamboo, right in this section here. But it's crying out for having something raised up here, and building this bit of a retaining wall here in this elevated position. It provides an additional kind of focal point, having this stone walling here, and it's a nice feature. Very pleased. Now when I'm cutting the stones, I'm marking it up, and then I'm cutting the reverse side, and I'm not doing the cut all the way through. As you can see, I'm probably just over halfway through that stone. And the reason being that the cut edge is very smooth and polished, and I need to then sort of go over that with a mallet and break it up to make it look a little bit more irregular and natural. But if I just cut the stone partially through and then break it away, what I'm left with is a very natural looking cut edge that doesn't look like it's been unnaturally cut. It looks more like it's been guillotined. Helps if I pick up the right stone, isn't it? Good. Got to round off some of those corners as well, because they're really sharp, straight corners again. They look a bit unnatural compared to the rough edge of the stone. Well, that's the paved area finished off this morning. Got an awful lot of pointing to do, but I'll save that for another day. It's going to be a great position to sit down and to enjoy the pond, looking back across at the Cascade there. So what's next? Well, I'm going to be planting up today. I've got a selection of some plants over here which I'm going to chop up and pot on. Mixtures of purple iris, some lovely red tinged titania, some more pickerel plant pondateria, some juncus, and this is going to fill these marginal zones quite nicely, provide a bit of interest. I'm going to have some lower growing plants in front of the paved area here. I don't want anything too large which is going to obstruct the view across to the pond, but at the same time it would be nice to see something popping up. It's going to draw the dragonflies and other pond wildlife and pond insects over in this area, so providing a bit of additional interest. I'm very pleased with how that's panned out. Nice shape, a nice area to be, and it complements the pond nicely. Morning. Well, today is the day, essentially the completion day. Well, we're going well anyway. It's a lovely day. I've been very lucky with this job, really. Weather's been pretty good for the duration of it, but today particularly a lovely morning. Yesterday was spent completing the paved area. I had a few stones to put down to complete that. The pond was partially drained so I could get planting. And I finished planting. I mean, there's still scope and space for many more plants, but I don't want to overstock it right now. We want to see what comes through next year, and then we can start to add to it gradually. But we've got a nice selection of various different plants which I'll run through at the end of the job. But it's so nice to see some foliage in the pond. It really does make it all come together. Very happy with how this Yorkstone paved area has worked out. But today we've got an awful lot of pointing to do. I'd like to try and get this completed today between the two of us, but it's a big task and a big ask, so fingers crossed we get to do it. Then it'll have the weekend to go off properly, and then Monday I can come back and tidy up. There's an awful lot of bits of stonework and rubbish that needs to be cleared up. I muddied the pond up a little bit yesterday when I was rummaging around in the gravel planting up, so hopefully over the weekend that will clear again as well. Well, we're making good progress here with the pointing. Bit of a tedious job. The hour or two is always quite nice, quite relaxing, not particularly strenuous, and after a while it just gets very boring. But I think we're probably going to get this completed over the course of the day, which will be fantastic if we can. Dave's the master at work as always. Thank you, Dave. You say so. There are obviously faster methods of doing this. More and more often you see people using that sort of resin compound. Easy joint is an example. The sort of stuff that you just buy, different colours in buckets, brush it in and just give it a light soak, and off it goes. And you can get something like this done very, very quickly with a product like that. But I'm not a fan. It's a time-saving exercise, but it's not as durable as a properly packed mortar joint, and I don't think it looks as nice as a nice peaked or sort of trowel joint as well. So I think this is more laborious, but it's, you know, better as a result. I'm not going to include too much of this in my video because I think I'll end up losing subscribers. I'll bore you all to pieces. So crack on, get this done, and I'll show you the finished result. What have you done today? Oh, I spent 7 hours on my knees doing this. Nearly finished. Thank goodness. Oh, finished. Literally, I shall be in bed tonight doing this in my dreams. Anybody that does this for a living is going to know exactly what I mean. Good job. I'm pleased to get that knocked out in a day. I didn't think I'd get that finished. So good. Very pleased. Well, today's the day. I can't believe it, but finally, this is the last day on the job. We've got a bit of tidying up to do, a lot of tidying up to do. But essentially, we are at the end of our long journey. Can't believe I'm saying that actually. So on Friday, obviously we spent all day to complete the pointing on the paving area, and that's done. And that's had the weekend to go off, and that's looking lovely now. The whole area needs a little bit of a clean. I'll give it a light jet wash. But very pleased with the result. The colour of the mortar matches the stonework really nicely. I think nice and neat. This is going to be very nice with a bench on there, or some sun lounges or something. A lovely area to sit and ponder. And I think hopefully with the wildlife, with the planting section here so close to the seating area, it should be a really, really good viewing point for, you know, wildlife, dragonflies and other water beetles down here. We will be introducing some more rudd into the pond at a later date. So again, it's going to be a lovely viewpoint looking down towards the livestock and the fish. Pond's beginning to clear. We've got a little way to go yet, but you can see the pumps on the bottom down there. That's 4 feet. You can almost see the bottom at the deepest part, so that's not bad going. So there's lots of tidying to do today. Well, we've completed the job. It's been a long time coming, and I can't actually believe that I'm saying that, you know, it's been done. When we start projects like this, you can't really think about the end day, the end result. It's too big a job, it's too daunting, and you just have to take everything step by step, day by day. Every day is a progress day, and eventually you get to the end result. So let's do a quick walk around of the pond, and I'll show you all the plants and bits and pieces. So starting in the shelving area over here, we've tried to keep planting to plants that are going to be in scale and not get too tall to screen this area, because obviously if you're sitting here, you don't want to have your view obscured by plants that are going to get too tall. So over here, we've got a lovely gem here. This is called a Aquaticum, or golden club, and this will be classed as the deep water marginal. It has lovely flowering spikes of sort of half yellow, half white. Very nice plant, and not often seen in ponds. I've got a couple of clumps of this. They're not going to get too tall either, so just high enough to break the line of the stonework here, to provide a bit of interest and attract some wildlife, but not to screen the view. And I've got lots and lots of this plant here, which looks like a giant three-leaf clover, and this is called bogbean, Menianthus trifoliatus. Really nice plant for rafting and surface coverage. So the idea is here that these sort of tendrils I've planted and all the way around the shelving here are going to hit the surface and start to branch out, provide shelter and cover for in the future when we get some fish in the pond, but for other wildlife and inhabitants as well. And again, just to break up this area a little bit. Obviously this part of the pond is where we've got the pumps and the piping and the cables and the equipment and a couple of the light transformers, and when the pond clears, this will be visible. So we want to get some plants in here to try to screen that and conceal it. Likewise, water lilies, we've got one here, there's plenty of space for some more, and the idea is that the pads will end up breaking the surface sort of late spring next season, and for the remainder of the spring and the summer they will grow up and seal a lot of that unsightly equipment as well. We've got a Calthophilus here, a marsh marigold. This is going to be a really nice early flowering plant next season. First signs of spring when you get the lovely yellow flowers in the pond from these, so a lovely plant. And these two striking chaps over here, this is Juncus uncifolius. This is a native plant, a type of rush. Doesn't always look particularly nice when it's unkempt or you've got dead tendrils and brown bits of growth in it, but as long as you keep it on top of it, raking away the dead thatch every season, it's an evergreen plant, and it's a very nice striking plant. You might notice interspersed amongst some of these things some lovely flashes of bright red. Around the statue here, Sally, it's the last time I say that, this is lovely, this is Hertinia. Now it can be a bit of a thug, not so much in the pond, but certainly growing out of the pond in just damp conditions. It will send its runners everywhere and really sort of fill up and take over. But actually I want to have something which is going to grow very dense as kind of an undergrowth in amongst all these taller plants. And you know, a lovely colour like this, I can afford for it to spread out. It's going to be restricted by the depth of the pond, so it's only going to remain within the shallows here. This plant here, which is looking a bit sorry for itself at the moment, is a variety of Equisetum. This is Equisetum japonicum. It's a bit like a bamboo when it grows up. Again, very neat, tall, sort of striking quills of evergreen foliage here. So next season this is going to start to grow through. This is a prehistoric plant actually. It's an ancient variety of plant that hasn't changed in millions of years. Now some people have put off with putting things like this in the pond because they mistake it for a variety of horsetail which you see growing outside in the garden, which is highly invasive, but this is not the same variety. This is a lovely pond plant, and I would encourage you guys to think about things like this in your pond. It's lovely. Again, lots more bogbean. Some of my favourite plants here, these are the pickerels, Pondateria. Lovely late flowering, purple flowers late in the season with this lovely kind of tropical lush foliage. Lots of that around the statue here to kind of frame her. Over here we've got the Cyperus longus, a variety of umbrella plants. Again, another form of evergreen, sedge grass, which is going to get reasonably tall. So later next year, hopefully these plants will really start to grow up and provide a nice big kind of dense screen, which from a distance will, you know, provide a lot of interest in the pond. And then working around, again a little bit more Hertinia, a bit more Equisetum, but now we've got lots of irises, and these are going to really fill out and provide nice dense clumps of neat foliage. These are a variety of purple iris, Iris versicolor or American flag, purple American flag iris. not too thuggy or too large like the native yellow flag. These guys are going to get to about 1 metre in height or thereabouts. Lovely, lovely flowers, but the flowering period is very short and it's over very quickly. But still, they're going to look lovely. They're getting a little bit more juncus. And then, if we carry on around to the next shelf, another bank here of predominantly iris, a little bit more pickerel, a little bit more bogbean. You can see there's a theme going on here with plants. And again, what this pond was always lacking originally were areas where you could plant up. There were no shelves, everything was sloping and going very deep. So we had a couple of areas where you could put a few small baskets, which would have been teetering on the sides and fell into the pond eventually. So being able to enlarge the pond's footprint slightly and to build these shallows and to build these marginal zones has allowed us to plant up. But it's planting really which is key on any pond. The edging and the plants which are going to make it. Moving around to the Cascade, I'm really pleased with how this has worked out. It's such a, you know, a natural slope which has been crying out for a cascade. I've always thought that something like this would look good here. And even just a simple spill, just a final stone at the end, would be sufficient to provide a nice bit of sound, a nice bit of aeration to the pond and a bit of interest. But being able to go back like this and to provide 2 or 3 drops, you know, really makes a feature out of it. Try to keep the cascade quite simple in terms of planting. I don't want to get anything which is going to grow too largely here and potentially end up, you know, forming dams or blocking the spill stones and causing the water level to back up behind it. I mean, at this time of year we're going to have to be careful with autumn leaves falling in. Already they're starting to collect in certain areas and it doesn't take a lot for the water level to rise. Now we've got quite good margins here of a good sort of 5 or 6 inches, so the water level would need to rise quite significantly to cause a problem, but it's still something that we need to keep an eye on. So planting, I just want stuff to grow in the cracks, to soften the edging, so I've got lots and lots of the mind your own business here. Angel's tears, Irish moss, there's lots of names for this. Again, it can be quite an invasive plant in certain conditions and some gardeners are keen not to introduce it into their garden, into borders. But in areas like this, where it's going to be restricted to the confines of the pond and the stonework, there's nothing better for softening this and for keeping it looking natural. So this has been seeded, and once the grass has grown, the idea here is that the grass is going to grow in between all the gaps of the stonework, start to creep over, and eventually a lot of this stonework is going to be screened and concealed, and all you'll be left with is the inside face of stone and the veil of water, the stream of water coming down, so keeping it looking nice and natural. And that will be accompanied by the nice soft tones of that mind your own business growing in amongst all the stones here. Really pleased with how the tank connector and that 4-inch connection has worked out from the discharge of the filter. Obviously here I'm running the 2 pumps, the main outlet from the filter, which is the Oasa Aquamax Eco Premium 20,000, and then the additional auxiliary pump, which is an additional 16,000 litre per hour. That's the Oasa Aquamax Eco Premium 16,000. Now that auxiliary pump, the statue, the lighting are all running off of an Oasa FM Master 3. I mean, there are more modern versions of the remote control system which you can connect to apps via your smartphone or tablet, but this is a nice and simple way of using a remote control. Kind of no thrills, but not a lot to go wrong and not a lot of tech to learn. So with the press of a button we can switch off the statue from the lady, turn her on. That sounds terrible. Turn her off. Lighting you're not really going to see during the daylight. I'm going to have to come back you know, in the evening once it's dark. But if I turn them on, you can see we've got a light up lighting the statue. We've got a light over in the marginal shelf over here to the left. If we come round to the Cascade, we've got a couple of lights on the spill stones. And at night time, those curtains of light are going to look lovely. And then a couple of other lights positioned down in the depth of the pond. We've also got the option here with that secondary pump of using this remote control as a form of increasing and decreasing the flow on the pump. We've got a plus and a minus here, and that's because the Aquamax Eco Premium pumps have a motor which will talk to the FM Master, an asynchronous motor. So with that press of a button, I can turn the flow right down on the second pump, So it'll take a minute or two before it makes a difference on the main spill. There we go, we can see that's starting to slow down. And what we'll end up with there is just the flow from the filtration pump, which is the 20,000 litre per hour pump. So if you wanted to tune the sound or change the flow, you've got that option. And it's a lot more sort of detailed than using a sort of a manual inline tap. You can get a much better effect with this controller. If I turn it back up again to full, again it'll take a minute or two before we notice a big difference to the flow. There we go, I can hear the sound is changing. That's it, so we're back to full flow again. And obviously with the controller we can turn that up or down in essentially as many increments as we want to. So if we head over to the filtration system, and I'll show you what's been rigged up. I mean, you can still see the signs on the ground here of trenching. Obviously from the filter tank over here we've got a 4-inch pipe underground connecting up to the top of the Cascade here. Within this we've also got some conduits so that in the future, if ever there's any upgrades or potential of adding new appliances, we've got ways of routing cables to the hub, to the electrics, without having to dig up too much. So concealed here in the foliage we've got filtration system. This is an Awaza Screen-O-Matic 2 140,000. And then attached to this we've got bolted onto this the Bitron Eco 240, which is a 240 watt UVC sterilizer. This is a lovely system. It's nice and neat that it bolts onto the tank. As the water enters the system, it hits a turbine which spins around the quartz sleeve and helps to keep the quartz sleeve free of any debris, limescale deposits and algae, etc., which means the UVC is running at well, as efficient as it can be. On the side of the UV here we've got a little screen which is depicting the water temperature. What's it saying? 18 degrees, not too bad. And a button here with 4 different LEDs, 50%, 75%, 90% and 100%. And this is turning on or off UV tubes within the unit. So during the winter months, when you don't need 100% power, you can turn this down and just run 50%, for example, to save a little bit of power. Personally, I would always leave it on 100%. And just get in the habit of replacing those tubes annually in spring, March, April time as standard. With Awaza, they've tried to keep it as sort of user-friendly as possible. Minimal tools required to do UV tube replacements. So you've got the blue clips here, the colour coordinated clips. With everything switched off, you could unclip here. One safety screw, the ballast slides away. The quartz sleeve remains within the system, which is nice. So it's very easy then to replace the UV tubes. You can also remove, of course, the quartz sleeve additionally to give that a good clean at the end of season or at the beginning of the season. So that's a nice easy job. Pipework to the system is 2-inch. This is 2-inch heavy duty soil pipe or waste pipe. Wanted to make sure that we are as unrestrictive as possible with flow. Using too small a bore hose is going to lose flow from friction loss and reduce efficiency on the system, so we want to make sure that we are running as efficient as possible. Once water enters the system, it hits this sieve or this screen which filters out most of the larger particles, and once the screen is heavily soiled, the sensor detects water levels. I can manually do this, but the screen would then automatically rotate. There's a little collection cup here and a brush, and this muck is cleaned off of the screen and ends up in the collection chamber here. So we've got a little collection here of needles and various bits and pieces, and the idea is that periodically you can lift the lid off, have a look inside, flick away much of the rubbish that collects in there, and that helps to keep the bulk of the filtration system beneath here nice and clean. Underneath this we've got a series of filter foams. There we go. So this is quite an old school method really of filtration. I'm just going to switch this off because that's a little bit more. go. So foams, it's a bit of an old school method of filtering, but it's incredibly efficient. There's a massive surface area here with these open cell foams, which allow beneficial nitrifying bacteria to colonise these sponges and to biologically process waste within the water, breaking down harmful ammonia into slightly less harmful nitrites and then on into nitrates, which then becomes a fertiliser for plant life and other things in the pond. And the idea of cleaning out the system like this, you've got a cleaning tool which is hanging on the side of the unit with two little plastic lugs, and these will connect up to the holes on top of these plastic plates here, and you can compress these foams, releasing all the silt and the sediment that's caught up inside the sponges. And then at a lift of this blue slide valve here, you can flush and empty the chamber. We've also got some biological media down here as well. This currently is filled with zeolite, but these ultimately can be changed and replaced with some ceramic media or sinter glass or some other high surface area biological media, just to really improve the efficiency of the biological filtration. You've also got a little brush so that you can clean the screen, and a bung here which is to block off the 4-inch outlet, so you can raise the levels in the system, so when you're performing a clean you're completely submersing those sponges and making sure you get them as clean as you can. I have done videos in the past on how to do a proper clean on these systems, so if you want any reference you can go back and find the links for those videos. Left it so that there is scope in the future, if we wanted to add a second filtration system. Stock wise in the pond, it's incredibly low stock. All we're really going to have is some goldenrod later on in the season. It's a very large volume of water. It's been estimated at almost 20,000 gallons, so one system like this would be working really at sort of, you know, at its maximum. But with the minimal fish stock and with the planting and the fact that we're not looking for a gin clear pond, it's not a koi pond, we just want to remove the bulk of the green which the pond used to have, and to try and have just a natural looking pond. So I think one system should do it, but in the future if we need to, we've got the options of upgrading an additional second unit as well. Now the electrics have been carried over here as well, so there's an armoured cable supply that was powering power to just an exterior twin socket that was always here, and all we've done is we've dug up and chased back the armoured cable and brought that over here, and then from this a simple extension plugged into the socket to provide power to this Matsuko timer switch box here. This was already on site, my client had this originally. I love these units, very good. Each one of these switches has got individual timer options, so you can turn on appliances individually via the timer. You can label up each individual switch, so we've got light 1, which is the remote control system, so turning that off will turn off the water feature, the lighting and the auxiliary pump. So that means that the FM master, which is controlled via that remote control, is then totally dead if you ever wanted to add any additional appliances. Pump 1 is the filtration pump, so we can turn that on and off, set a timer if you wanted to, but of course there'd be no need to. We've got UV, we've got the filter belt, the mechanical belt, and then we've got button 5 here as a spare. So again, in the future, if we wanted to add something, an air pump, some additional lighting, if we were to add that second filtration system, we've got a spare here for that. So this is all nice and neat and tidy, out of the way, but located close to the system, so from a maintenance point of view, it's easy to turn stuff on and off to get to the filter for a clean. Over here, this is the FM master control unit. So underneath this waterproof cover, you've got the electrics, again running underground in a trench and plugged in over there. There is an optional sort of fake rock cover you could put over this to conceal it, which is quite a good idea, but it's not an unattractive unit, and once the plants have grown up here to conceal it, it's not something that's visible, so I'm not concerned about that. It's going to take a little while for obviously the planting to really establish, for the planting around the edges over here to recover, and underneath the bamboo over here, but hopefully this time next year it's going to look very different, and I shall be excited to come back and to see it. It's quite sad actually that it's over, isn't it?
It is.
We've been here a long time. It's been an enjoyable project. There have been moments when I just thought it wouldn't finish. There have been days when it's been hard, but overall it's been, you know, thoroughly enjoyable, immensely rewarding and satisfying, and you know, one of those jobs that I shall remember in the future, and I'm pleased that I've taken part in and been able to do. And the most rewarding thing is going to be coming back in the future to see how it settled down and how it establishes. I did say early on when I was building this that when it was done I was going to end up in the pond. It's a nice day, haven't really got any excuses. I guess I'm going to have to get in. That's quite cold. Now this was never designed as a swim pond, so the equipment we've used in here isn't low voltage, apart from the lighting. Let me stand up in the deep end. Here we go. Definitely too deep for me to wade in. So for safety's sake, I have actually switched off all of the electrical equipment. You could do something like this as a swim pond, and you could use dedicated swim pond equipment, low voltage pumps and UVs, etc. It's certainly big enough as a swim pond. But in the future, you've only got to switch it off. Oh, it is cold. 18 degrees sounds quite warm, but it isn't. And I suppose with that, I've got to say thank you for following our journey. Thank you for watching. On to the next pond. I'm Ed from Crystal Clear Aquatics. Thank you for watching.